Hello there and welcome back to some more silly car showdown. Today we are taking a look at the Nismo GT-R LM road car. This car was requested by Tank Catapults and I'm a big fan of the GT-R LM. For those of you who don't know what it is, essentially it's a homologated version of the R33. It features strange things such as rear wheel drive, the engine was up to 300 horsepower, it has this sort of crazy looking, completely redesigned body kit on it, which looks awesome. It's just a really cool car. Unfortunately, not a massively successful racing car, but it is a cool one none of the less. Anyways, time to see what it can do when it is sillyified. When it comes to the engines, we have a choice of a 3.2 litre inline 6 or the 6.2 litre V8. We will not use any of those, we'll stick with the standard engine. And apparently we can upgrade it to run a single turbocharger, which makes it better, so sure. Of course, as usual, in accordance with the rules of this series, no drivetrain swaps are allowed, and also no Forza aero parts, so the car must stay as it is. In terms of tyres, I'm expecting pretty good things here. We'll have to see, though. 305s on front, and 305s on the rear, so yeah, pretty good. And we can increase the track width, which we will. Fantastic. Right, the car actually looks slightly more normal now. Usually when you do the track width out, it makes the car look weird, but in this case, yeah, it has actually looked to have improved things, which is nice. Right, we're probably not going to get much weight out of this. Handling-wise, I think I've driven these a few times and they're pretty tidy handlers, but we'll have to sort of see when it comes to this one. The engine I do have one big concern about. And that this car, at least with the stock engine, the engine revs out to like something crazy like 11k, but power is actually sort of the actual red line sort of peak power range is only about 8 grand. So over revving in this car is a serious issue that can be achieved. PI is climbing nicely. S1896 with the single turbocharger. And gonna keep going. Do we want that for the extra do you know what, we'll just get rid of that because it is going to drop PI slightly. Anyways, S1896, 910 horsepower, 780 foot-pound torque, 2,934 pounds of weight, 3.9 seconds, 60 top speed, 234 miles per hour. Yeah, pretty solid statistics across the board for the GT-R LM, considering this engine only makes 300 horsepower stock, and the usual rule of this game is that stock engines will often only make about double the power that they make standard. This is a really good tunable engine, as it turns out, so that's always nice to see. So yeah, there you go, the GT-R LM Nismo. Now, it wasn't a successful race car in real life, but will it be successful when it goes to our track? There's only one way to find out. Okay, so here we are at our Edinburgh course, ready to set 5 laps with our Nismo GT-R LM road car. Our current leader is the Ferrari FXXK, that's set a time of 134.196. The Nismo GT-R LM, probably unlikely to beat it, but it's, you know, not as far off a fault as it was in the Taxi or in the Eldorado, but still very far off because it's rear-wheel drive and old. As far as where I'm expecting this car to go, I'm not too sure. Actually, it really does depend on its driving characteristics. When I was driving this around, I did notice a few little bits and bobs about it. One, it makes a hell of a lot of boost. The actual boost, according to the telemetry, is 51.4 pounds, which is insane. That's almost turbo rally levels. It also makes lots of blow-off valve noises, which I'm a fan of, and it seems to be relatively tiny a handler. Also, I did keep an eye on the whole power thing. It does drop off after about 9k, so I'll try and shift then. But to be honest with you, it's not as big an issue as it is in some other car, or it's not as big an issue as it is stock, because, you know, the stock car only makes 300 horsepower, and by the time you're at redline, you've dropped off up to, I think it's about 75 horsepower it drops off. In this, it's 75 horsepower, but this car makes 960 odd now, so you know, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So I'll try and show you what I mean. You can sort of see the power dropping off around 9k, so there you go. Anyways, it seems to be a pretty tidy handler, this car. Seems to be quite a nice little thing to drive as we go up towards the line. A 149.315 is the first time, although do bear in mind that was from a standing start, and this is a rear-wheel drive car, so plenty of good things to come from this one. Yeah, not actually sure. I guess the Nissan 4-rotor SX would be an interesting sort of car for this to aim for, a 147.476, I believe that was. Yes, it is. I'm just sort of looking out the corner of my eye. And by looking out the corner of my eye, I mean looking with my entire eye, hence why I missed the checkpoint. Go me. Right. It says laps are right off as well, but that doesn't really matter. We've still got quite a few laps to go with the Nismo GT-R LM road car just yet. But yeah, it's pretty alright. The rear end, I will say, when the rear end comes out, it doesn't sort of stop coming out, which is an issue. Some of these cars you can sort of drive around with a little bit of tail wagging action, usually four-wheel drive cars, and they'll sort of correct it in the end. This is not one of those sorts of cars. This you pretty firmly have to sort of sort it out, otherwise it'll just keep doing it. So that is a bit of an issue when it comes to this vehicle, but it's not a massive one. Brakes are a lot better than they have been on the Eldorado and the Taxi, which are the only two cars I've driven today. You might be able to tell from the broken voice box. So yeah, in a couple of episodes' time you'll either have a lovely fixed normal voice, or you'll have an even more broken voice. So we'll see. We're not recording these on the usual day of Thursday. We're recording these on Sunday this week because something came up Thursday. I can't remember what it was, but I couldn't do it. I think it's ridiculous amounts of tiredness. Anyways, obviously no quicker on that second lap out, but now we can finally start to see what the GT-R LM can do and whether it can get towards that 4-rotor SX. Got those weird little bumps again, making their first presence of today's recording session. Still have literally no idea what those are. No one in the comment section has ever offered an explanation as to what's going on there either, so I'm just assuming it's some weird pothole or like poorly modelled tarmac. I have no idea. It seems to be at random spots as well, which doesn't help me at all either. Right. The actual straight line speed is not massively quick in this vehicle. Even before I get to Glasgow Smile, I sort of noticed that. Top speed of about 149 down there. Seems to be on the same sort of pace levels as something like the Eldorado was. But then again, I mean, I wasn't expecting this car to be particularly fast. I was expecting it to be a tight handler, which it is. It really is pretty good through the corners. The front grip on this thing is very good. You know, 305 tyres, you'd sort of expect it to be, or 305 tyres on a more modern car than, say, the Taxi. That had 325s, but even still, this has got bigger ones, which is good. Maybe I would have preferred some slightly bigger rear tyres, maybe like 325s on the rear. Would have helped this thing out, but overall it's not bad, and that was a lap where I was sort of holding it back a little bit, trying to be cautious, but a 147.876 is not bad. Continue going though. Of course, the one thing the 4-rotor SX does have in its wheelhouse is the fact that it was significantly lighter, from what I remember. This is weighing, you know, close-ish to 3,000 pounds because it's a race vehicle, so there wasn't really much weight that could be stripped out of it from the start. And when we put the turbo in, that did make this car, I believe the actual total weight was 3.5. So that is not a light vehicle. That is, yeah, really not a light vehicle. As we sort of have some sideways action through there. A little bit more sideways action. Car really seems to love sticking its tail out. around certain places, which is a bit of an issue. Again, I think bigger tyres at the rear would help this car out a lot. Also downforce, but we can't have that, so we'll just have to deal with the way it is. But it seems solid. I mean, again, it's the actual sort of grip through these corners. I could probably take these corners a lot quicker. The problem I've got is I could take the corners a lot quicker with the front end of the car, but the rear end of the car is not quite as compliant. So it's sort of, the front end's very nice, very controlled, very easy, and the rear end just sort of wants to break free, which is a slight issue. It's sort of, it's not quite as jarring as some of the other examples of these cars are. You know, something like a BMW M4 GTS, where the front end and the rear end are not on speaking terms. That is a very jarring car to drive. 146.374, okay, that is good. On this final lap, I very nearly missed my turning there, but because this car has such good brakes and pretty decent front end grip, we did manage to get it in there. That was actually pretty good, okay. A little bit of power on the way out. But yeah, it does feel sort of like a car of two halves, which is, again, it's not quite as jarring as some examples of two half cars I've driven, but it's still there. This has gone and kind of badly. Yeah, I sort of messed that up a little bit. I don't think this lap's going to be any quicker. Again, it's kind of weird. The car definitely feels like it could go quicker, but I don't have that much confidence in the rear end not swinging around and doing whatever it wants to do. Which is a bit of a shame, really, because, again, the rest of the car feels like it's perfectly capable of handling very, very well indeed. It's just sort of the rest of it is yeah, the front end's good, rear end, the worst bit is the rear end's not, like, terrible, it's not undrivable. It's just nowhere near as quick as the rest of the car. That almost turned out unfortunate, but this lap can still be salvaged because that was not a bad bump on that building. Also, you can't really go full throttle. You can definitely tell when the turbo kicks in this car. It's around 6,000 RPM is when the turbo really starts to build boost, and yeah, that does upset the car quite a bit. I'm not sure sort of what the twin turbo system could do power-wise, but I'm assuming it would be a much more stable power delivery. It's not going to go any quicker on this final lap. A 146.374 is the final time for the GT-R LM. I've got to be honest, I think it could have gone quicker if I had more confidence in it. The problem is, you know, sort of watching that lap, it did sort of look like I was pussyfooting it a bit. And I kind of was, because it's just, I want to trust it, but it's not the most trusty car to drive. It's sort of, it makes you second guess. Yeah, it's not great, I'm afraid, but it's not bad. I mean, again, that front end is really solid, and this car with less horsepower, or even the stock twin turbo setup, could be a lot better, but because it's got so much boost now circulating through those rear wheels, it does make it a little bit uncontrollable. Anyways, a 146.374 will put this car into 22nd place. It goes in between two Fords, the Ford GT40 EcoBoost and the Viperbox Mustang. It is slightly quicker than the Evo 9 Evolved, it's slightly slower than the superb Subaru Impreza. It's also slightly down on the Z4 V10, which is relatively comparable to this car. It is quicker than the 4-rotor SX though by about 1.1 seconds, so yeah, overall a pretty okay result. But again, I wish this rear end just had a little bit more grip, a little bit more staying power, and it would be better, but unfortunately that's not the case. Anyways, thank you for watching this edition of Silly Car Showdown. I do hope you've enjoyed. As always, if you'd like to request cars for the series, you can do so down below in the comment section. Alternatively, you can join my Discord, link below in the description, and put your cars in the request chat. It's the best way to do it, as I can keep tabs on them. But anyways, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a farewell.